So the next talk is Reimagine Relief with Cyclosporin by Dr. Nimrata Dhami.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm going to be talking about, the spectrum and the scope of cyclosporin in our day-to-day ophthalmological practice, especially in dry eye and ocular surface. So this is the scope of cyclosporin. It is not just limited to aqueous deficient as the popular thinking goes. We can use it in immune-mediated dry eye, be it blepharokeratoconjunctivitis, neurotrophic keratopathies, even post-adenoviral subepithelial infiltrates, allergic eye disease, and very importantly, in post-LASIK dry eye, its usage has increased a lot. So dry eye in the immune mediated scenarios, it's very important to treat white inflammation. White inflammation because the eye surface is not red hot, just as the normal understanding of the word inflammation goes. You don't feel or see anything, but the eye still has inflammation going on, although you might feel the eye is quite a normal, the TBUTs are normal, the Schirmer is normal, still what is going on. Also in meibomian gland dysfunction, most of these, as you know, even in young males, these blepharokeratoconjunctivitis have a lot of autoimmune component, and they have these recurrence of attacks. Staphylococcal hypersensitivity is the other word which we use for this. Are also important indications for using cyclosporin. Also post LASIK dry eye, especially post PRK and post cross-linking haze regulation, also cyclosporins have a very big role. So dry eye, again, there's an iceberg phenomena. I always feel it is underreported and undertreated and under-acknowledged as well by us as ophthalmologists. So not going into the details, obviously, we're just, I think, diagnosing or treating only 40%, 60% of the patients are still, underdiagnosed and undertreated. But the common, theory is just don't think, go give the lubricating drops. These, patients, if I may say, are actually the most nagging and irritating patients in your OPD, but they are actually the ones which are neglected. And if you own up this population of patients, you may actually be increasing your practice just by being the good doctor here. So whatever the cause, we are going to give the same lubricant. This is not what I try to advocate here. Going back to where it all began, the classification of dry eye, aqueous deficient, evaporative, a very boring slide, but I want you to ponder over one thing. Is this root cause based or is it just effect based classification? We are not talking about the root cause. Aqueous deficient is not the root cause. This is what has happened. It is an effect based classification. So if we want to start our treatment based on if it is an aqueous deficient or an evaporative dry eye, I think that's not really the sole purpose over here. We need to understand what led to the aqueous deficient, what led to the evaporative dry eye component. So I think writing lubricants nowadays, it's like standing on this signal. It's a jargon. You don't know what to prescribe when. So pouring these drops alone will not help. So the food for thought is that not all dry eye is same. You cannot treat a dry eye with due to rheumatoid arthritis the same as that with MGD. So it's important not to treat the root cause and not just the effect. So artificial tears, they mimic natural tears, and they are the first line of treatment. But we need to understand that we need to escalate the treatment if there is severe inflammation, underlying systemic disease. If you know the patient has some autoimmune disease going on, GVHD, or there is rheumatoid arthritis or thyroid, you need to understand this dry eye is going to trouble you a bit more and needs more attention. Meibomian gland dysfunction, gadget usage, or unhealthy lids and glands, again you need to undertake those things more. Anatomical disturbances, and again neuropathic ocular pain, it's a very important new entity that has been included in the DUCE 2 classification. Neuropathic pain, which I like to explain as pain without stain. That means you're not seeing anything but the patient is complaining of pain. So inflammation, hyperosmolarity, and inflammation lie at the heart of dry eye disease. This is what I want you to get from this. So cyclosporin, what it does is that in its own way, it is going to stop the cascade, work at the ICAM receptors, and it is going to stop the cascade of tear, the inflammation, and hence lead to slowly increase to goblet cell density and increase the tear production. Because when the surface is not under stress, the tear quality and quantity both improve. Hence, not only aqueous deficient, even evaporative dry eye has become an important indication for prescribing cyclosporin. So the action, just to bore you a little with the place where it works, inhibits T cell activation, enhances goblet cell density, reduces inflammatory cytokines, and reduces the expression of all the inflammatory receptors so that the eye surface gets stable. So it increases tear production. Again, I think we've covered this. So all the factors, where you feel that the dry eye is just not going to be limited to lubricants is very important, that you need to look beyond and you need to treat beyond just what you see, in terms of giving them lubricants. So again, these are the various components, glycerine and all these are osmoprotectants. Castor oil, it is a common, activator which helps the better penetration of these drugs, cyclosporin, and so many other complexes that you find in your lubricant. So your lubricant basically consists of all your active medications. They have a viscosity agent, a medical agent, one buffering agent. So all of these have the specific role and toxicity or not to play. So fast onset of improvement as you give these Unim formulations, especially Restas is which is I call the parent drug, and the first on which most of the researches have been done. I think everything else has been just adapted from that. So they all have a faster onset of action. Unim formulations always helps. As the ocular surface improves, your tears are looking better. Your as the surface gets improved lubrication, the higher order abrasions reduce on the surface, and the visual function also improves. So again, if you prescribe these along with your lubricants, the patient is actually going to come back happier. Tear film stability, is exactly I said that evaporative dry eye, it has a very good role, and also increasing the goblet cell density. Although these are very small components and we don't talk about them, but they are very important, playing a local functional role in dry eye management. So cyclosporin A 0.05%, and as compared to we have now 0.09%, 0.1% coming up. So this is an optimized concentration. It reduces your stinging and all the other factors which cause non-compliance towards cyclosporin. So adverse events are low and tolerability is better. So the case reports, again, as we discuss in blepharokeratoconjunctivitis, as you can see, long term you cannot give steroids in these patients. You need to accompany them with the immunomodulators, because these are recurring conditions, chronic conditions, very important conditions in which you need to think and give beyond steroids. Meibomian gland dysfunction also, not just to aqueous deficient, the scope of cyclosporin has increased. Post-LASIK dry eye also, because we are advocating our post-LASIKs and the outcomes of post-LASIK, like we want our patients to have an instant recovery. We're actually advertising them like a Maggi noodle formulation. We want the patient, both the doctor and patient want instant gratification. So you need to accompany these drugs along with your lubricants. Again, during the early postoperative period with SMILE or LASIK, either ways, although the cut size is small, but still the dry eye does happen. Evaporative dry eye, yet again, you can accompany it with your initial hot fomentations and ointments and expression of glands. These drugs start helping. Post-adenoviral subepithelial infiltrates, I think this is a very underdocumented, but this is, I think, a very common indication to give cyclosporin. And for long term, because these are chronic patients who keep coming back to you and are really, really tough to treat. Again, primary and secondary Sjogren syndrome, the classic indications. Neurotrophic keratopathy also, they have a very good role, especially preservative-free Unim formulation is the way to go in such cases. And again, allergic eye disease, very critical for you. I feel we see so many, young lads, they lose their vision because of not just allergy itself, but over prescription, and everybody wants to give them a steroid. Nobody thinks of, putting them along with some immunomodulator for long-term therapy. So very, very important condition, because if we don't want the eye to go into rubbing and keratoconus, we don't want them to lose to steroid-induced glaucoma itself. Again, post-cataract surgery dry eye, as we increase the premium IOLs, we need to take care of the ocular surface, because I think the patient does have dry eye and a cataract, but they think that, just getting a cataract surgery with a premium IOL will solve the dry eye itself. So, nowadays with the demand in cataract surgery also increasing, like LASIK, and the outcomes expected to be as high, patients want a LASIK type of outcome for the cataract. So dry eye and ocular surface needs to be really taken care of. And again, anti-glaucoma medications, anything which disturb the surface needs something more than your lubricants or even mild steroids for a short course. So cyclosporin 0.05% elevates the dry eye symptoms at all severity levels. Thank you so much. Yeah, so this is the most common question that I get, especially like, in children, people ask me, how long are you using it? I interestingly asked this question from LVPI faculty when I started my practice, and they said that they've been using for 10 years also. So when I was taught, they said that, you don't use it for that long, but you can give it till the time you feel, that especially in kids that now, when they phase out of their puberty and their allergies, you feel that the surface is not stable, you can give it for 10 years or a very long time, especially like in Sjogren, you have to give it. You have to understand what your hydroxychloroquine is for the body, your cyclosporin is for the eye. You need to combat the local immunity, so you can give it for a very long time without a problem.
How do you deal with that? How do you
Yeah,
counsel
so
them?
burning sensation, right now, if you go with the ones which are the multi-dose vials, if they have preservative, burning sensation and loss to compliance is very high. So you have to really tell the patient, please don't change the doctor, I will change the medicine, because they will go to someone else, and then again they will keep running around, because this understanding of giving cyclosporin, the heart to give cyclosporin is only limited to people who do very religiously ocular surface or cornea, right? So you have to tell them that you're going to change the drug. You have to be very patient. Burning sensation is common. It is more common with tacrolimus, because that is in ointment form. Nowadays, with the Unum formulations, I've very hardly had a patient. I never start with lubricant, I start cyclosporin. I always kick it with steroids. 3 weeks, once I know the steroids are weaning off, the cyclosporin is going to take over. Never give it just with on an inflamed surface. Give your steroids, your lubricants, gels, and a cyclosporin. Let it be, the one-man show later on after 3 weeks to 1 month, not at a first instant. If you prescribe it with good counseling, if you prescribe it with taking care of the other components, the loss to compliance and burning sensation is very low, especially nowadays the unims are coming very good. So that is there.
Ma'am, any experience with Liftigras now? Will you be
Yeah,
switching
yeah.
to?
So I tried it in a few patients.
Yeah.
I was a very religious cyclosporin provider. Still I am. I tried it in a few patients, and they I think market on the fact, or they bank on the fact that it is a faster onset of action and less side effects. In those 2-3 patients, they have been happy so far. The ocular surface also looks stable. But I'm still reserved about it, and my heart and soul goes in giving cyclosporin. 1 or 2 patients I've given, frankly, not given much. But again, the preservative-free ones, the Unims are very costly still, and the multi-dose vial again have that issue of a bit of a burning sensation. Is still,
Yeah, that's
is
what
still.
the patient came back
Yeah,
with.
yeah. So Ajanta has one, which
One,
is multi-dose, but it was fine. Ocular surface looked okay, but the patient complained of burning. Yeah, so that was there. So I was like, still my heart is
Yeah,
into
same with
cyclosporin.
thing. Thank you.
Yeah. Don't go by what the company says. They advise a lot of things. We have to see our patient. I always tell, we don't treat the reports. We don't treat, what the company tells us. We treat the patients. Don't look at anything. See what you tailor and customize the treatment for yourself.
Because as you said, cyclosporin we can continue for many years.
Yeah.
Some patients we
you have to
continued
see to
lifelong.
understand. I tell this is my standard line. What your HCQ is for the body, your cyclosporin is for the eye. There is you need to combat the immunity over there.
So that 3 months dose for Liftigras doesn't make sense.
No, I
because
never
it's-
listen to this part. When they're telling me the dose, I tell them that's my job. All right. Thank you.